Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Sandy Bob Blog Radio Talk Show. And today is Tuesday, February. What's today? The 5th or 6th? The 5th, I think. Anyway, we have a very special guest on today, and his name is Randy Catlett, and he's from Oklahoma, and he's going to be talking to us on a bunch of the projects he's been working on. He's making modifications to cars and trucks and improving the gas mileage up to 100 miles a gallon, and I know there's a big interest in all that. And since he's a working guy, he called me a few minutes before the show started and said he got called out on a call and it's going to be a few minutes late. So because of that, is Claudia on?
Yes, sir.
Claudia, how are you today?
Yeah. Oh, just fine. So happy to be here and share information with others.
Well, Claudia, while we're waiting for Randy to get back from that, he had to go out on the road, and fix something for a customer. It was like an emergency situation. He didn't have much choice in it. So, Claudia, I heard that you had some really interesting things to share with everybody and about the Orions, and we'd love to hear it. So please tell us what you found out and can share with us.
Okie dokie. First of all, my subject is outer space, I guess you could say. That's where the Orions are. They're in the constellation of Orion. And what I'm sharing is just information that I have received or come into contact with on the real side. And to put that more colloquially, is that when you go to sleep at night, if you do a new UUU session with 15 minutes before you go to bed and ask a question, you'll receive an answer from the real side, which is your dream state. That's the real part of life. The life that we have here in the physical is sort of the opposite of what we think of the dream state. It's stuff that we come into contact with and may give us false information, but the real side gives you the real answer of what's going on. So one night I asked the question, well, what is the what's going on? What's the lifestyle? What's the beings from Orion like? And I got some flashes of insight into their lifestyle. First thing was that they were recently engaged in a 10,000-year war. They are long-lived creatures, and I'm using the term creatures because their body form is of a reptilian shape, like a lizard, the gecko lizard on that Geico commercial for insurance. They have 2 arms or 2 limbs, top side, 2 legs, and they used to have a very long tail, but that was genetically altered off of the incoming Orions. The new babies were genetically modified so their tails would not grow, and it separated them from the older, pure Orion people, so that they would be noticed immediately. If you didn't have a tail, then you were not an old Orion, which they considered the purebred part of the species. They don't have vocal cords like we do, so they don't speak, but they have great mental capabilities. They squawk, I guess you could say, like a gecko or a lizard. Some lizards can like that, and that they communicate. When they communicate mentally, they look at you directly and are able to access your deepest thoughts and secrets, and they know you intimately in one glance. They are very, I guess you could say, strong people or persons, entities. They are since they were in war, their queen permitted this war to go on because originally it started because the queen wanted more workers. And the nearby constellation of Sirius had very pliable people, creatures. They are also not human, but they're humanoid in that they have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, mouth, nose, ears, so on and so forth. But their body form is that they are have a very soft, fine fur that completely covers their entire body. If you touch it or stroke it, it's gossamer. It's almost not there, but it's very beautiful. They're usually dark brown, but in various shades of that color. And they have long, 12 to 18 inches tufts of hair that are all over their arms and legs and trunk of their body. I don't quite understand why that's there, but that's what they look like in my vision. Anybody in the audience can always do a new UUU session 15 minutes before they go to sleep and ask the real guides for the information, the correct information about it, and you'll have complete access. The answer is usually given immediately, but you have to be alert to spot the answer. Sometimes it doesn't come right away. It may come in a book form that you find at the bookstore that just happens to fall into your hands, or you may have a conversation with someone, and they might say something unaware that they're giving you the answer to the question you asked previously. Anyway, back to the Syrian population, they also cannot speak, as they do not have vocal cords. They kind of grunt. They look more like gorillas, I'm going to say. That's the closest I can come to it. And they're very docile, gentle type people. They also have tremendous mental capabilities. They can just look at you or glance at you one time and they know everything about you. Your deepest thoughts, secrets, your aspirations, everything. In this 10,000-year war with the Orions, who were trying to capture the Syrians and use them as slaves to work in the mines or on the plantations of farms, they needed more workers. The Orions, because of the genetic manipulations on incoming babies, they were running out of food. And they ate a kind of, I guess you could say it looked like a coconut and had the consistency of a kiwi fruit. So it was kind of like brown on the outside, soft enough to bite, but hard enough to be solid, like a coconut. And particular fruit they ate thousands of years ago kept their bodies in great shape, perfect health, and in longevity. The average lifespan of an Orion is between 70 and 100,000 years, our years. So that makes them very long-lived, and it gives them an opportunity to observe life over time. Anyway, the Queen of Orion wanted more slaves to work on the mines because the atmosphere of the home planet in Orion was pretty much destroyed during the 10,000-year war with the Syrians. And the queen knew that they were facing extinction. So she wanted to make a deal with the Syrians to stop the war and to unite their two empires. The queen had a son. She wanted to marry off to the daughter of the prefect of Sirius. The Syrian people, when they all want to know something, they can communicate to the entire population at one instant. So everybody knows everything about whatever they're concentrating on. The Orions have sort of the same capabilities, but they're more technical type people. They know a lot about electronics, computers, everything. And part of the story or history on our planet comes from when the Queen's first son was one that she constructed for herself without the benefit of her husband, King Anu. Now,
was that Enki or
Enki? His name is Enki, Enki.
Okay.
And he had a brother produced by the King Anu union with the Queen of Orion, and his name was Enlil, Enlil. Now, the Queen sent Enki out into the nearby part of the universe that they live in, looking for minerals and food. What the Queen discovered is that they would have to eat flesh in order to survive. And this changed the Orion body type form, and they became flesh eaters. Animals of any type were consumed. Now, when Enki got to Earth, he found very smart monkeys living on this planet. It was a time before, in the beginning of mankind's progression or evolvement on this planet. Enki was a geneticist par excellence. He was brilliant with biological information and manipulations of cells. So when he found this planet Earth, he first discovered that there was white powder gold laying on the surface of the planet in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley that could be easily recovered and used almost immediately. It didn't need to be refined. So, quick from his mother, and was trying to hoard it for himself. So his mother noticed that he wasn't reporting anything or sending anything but a few vegetables home to the home planet. So she sent the brother Enlil to find out what Enki was up to and doing. When Enlil got here, he saw what Enki had done and how much he had stashed away privately of the white powder gold, and how he had forms of vegetables that he was sending to the home planet, but that he had started eating flesh, the animals on the planet. Then it deteriorated to the point where he ate human flesh, because he considered the monkeys on the planet cattle. He considered them on the level of cattle. So he could eat them without any feelings of transgression or remorse. Anyway, as he began to do this, he told his mother that he was going to fix everything and that he would start sending gold home, the white powder gold that he found, to help correct their atmosphere. That was the only thing they could spray into the atmosphere to bring it back to out of the poisonous things that had happened. And the way it got into such bad shape, the planet is worse than Mars right now. In the 10,000-year war, the Orions had technical capabilities, but the Sirians had mental capabilities far in excess of what the Orions had, but they didn't have any technical capabilities. So the way they fought the war was that the entire Sirius population, they could capture an asteroid, change the trajectory of its flight, and increase the speed. So they would bombard Orion planets and the home planet itself with asteroid parts, and they could do this easily and quickly. So that's how the war was fought on a very odd level. Technical on one side and brute force on the other side. When Enki, again back to the part where he, being a superior geneticist, saw the capabilities he could use with the monkeys on this planet, he changed their DNA and increased the intelligence capability of the monkey so it could operate the mining equipment. And one other thing that he did that violated universal law was he changed the breeding pattern of the smart monkeys so that he could have an endless supply of slaves. He would appear before the monkeys and who had been altered and tell them he was a god and that they should bow down and worship him. And they didn't know any different, so they did. This is how, quote-unquote, religion came onto our planet and started, and why we have so many different types of religion, but all religion with the same premise of you're worshiping a god. Because of Enki's capability of longevity, he could appear in different epochs of our history, our human history, as different gods. His brother did the same thing, like there would be Quetzalcoatl or someone in China, Buddha or whatever. They would just change their costume and tell the people they were a god and start a new religion, and immediately the people were given demonstrations of miracles, quote unquote, that they could do with their electronics. So the quote unquote smart monkeys were then enslaved to work and worship the god that they presented to them. And that's how religion got going. And to enforce their control of the monkeys, they started government. That, if you did this, you broke this law, this punishment will happen. So our whole history can be linked to the Orion population. But the good news is, when Enki changed our DNA pattern, he changed the codons of the DNA, and he used his DNA as the basis for doing this. So all humans on this planet are related to the Orion royal family. This is good and bad. One, good that we are related so that we can at any time access information about the royal family. Those that can do this are what we would call seers on this planet, people who are able to see information on the real side or gather information that isn't done by book or computer. The bad part is that we are hybrids, half human, half Orion, and we carry this in our DNA. And the original Orions do not look upon us as educated in any way. They look upon us as dumb cattle, and they eat us. And this is a hard point for a lot of people to deal with. Hopefully someday we'll get to the point where we all become aware of this knowledge and can choose a better path than the ones that we have chosen now, because we have been misled, deceived. This is what they're good at, Orions are good at, is deceiving and misleading, because they can mentally change our thought patterns or suggest a pattern of thought that is not in our best interest. Did you want me to go on?
Well, you bring up a very interesting point there, Claudie. So, a lot of people might be asking the question, well, if they're eating human beings as cattle, well, how come we don't see anything of that happening? But one thing that people, all they have to do is go online and they can do a Google search, and they will find that even just in the United States alone, there's over 1 million little kids, like teenagers and younger, that disappear in this country, completely disappear in the United States never to be seen again. And I personally call them the grocery bag kids, because that's the only thing that people have a reference to, because the government covers it up so much. And that's just this country. How about other countries, where they don't have any records, Social Security numbers like we do, like China and Russia and India, these huge populations. And so, there's a lot of reptilians on this planet, but that's a lot of kids to be eaten, So what do you go along with that, Claudie?
Yes, the reason is the humans are given a story, and they believe it as truth, their opinion of truth, or however you want to say it. And it is very misleading. If you look at the way people disappear, like you just mentioned, it is very odd, especially in this country, to have so many people disappear, and we not, as a population, be alert and alarmed by what's happening, because so many children disappear and never found again. You hear stories of people going to the national forest and disappearing. They don't come back. They can't find any trace of where they went or what they want. What happened? How did this happen? And not just one person or two or three, but over the last 10 years, last 20 years, 30 years, people have been disappearing, and usually it's the homeless who are don't have a home or records or anything like that, and they're living in a homeless shelter, and they're there one day, and the next day they do not come back. That's it. They're gone. And the homeless people or shelter people, some of them are awake enough to notice this, but they don't know what to do about it. Oh, look, Susie Jane disappeared last week, and we haven't seen her since. I live in Texas, and the Hurricane Harvey went over us, and a lot of people were put on FEMA barges to stay, and they disappeared, and we don't know where they went. Reporters covered this story for about 2 days, and then you never heard another word about it. So if you put, things together that you notice, you can kind of see what's going on, but it requires you to be awake in your mental capabilities, in the sense that you notice things, and you have to have a certain amount of curiosity to see what's going on. Is there something that I'm not seeing?